Hi, my name's Dania.
Hi, my name's Nevaeh.
Hi, my name's Cassidy.
And welcome to the Dope Student Podcast.
Hey.
So, who do we have here today?
We have here Jeo Ramos, all the way from Lancaster City, Pennsylvania, not Lancaster County. I don't live with the Amish. I live in Lancaster City.
Okay, so today we're going to be asking you some questions. The first question is, what inspired you to become a speaker, rapper, and restorative justice trainer, and how did these roles shape your personal journey?
Well, my story has a lot of losses. My story has a lot of trauma, a lot of hard lessons learned from the decisions I made. And it was only when I had positive people in my life come alongside and speak life to me, show me that the behaviors that were frustrating my mom, my teachers, right? Like I was always getting in trouble for talking too much. You ever get in trouble for talking too much?
Yeah.
Just not today, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you will. She gonna talk in a minute. So I would get in trouble all the time for talking too much in class, right? But the thing is, in the back of my mind and in my heart, I had something to say, right? I wanted to share my story. I wanted to tell people what I was thinking, how I was feeling, but I would get in trouble for it. I had a teacher who empowered me, right? He gave me insight to this desire to always talk. And it was, hey, I think you're destined for greatness. I think you have a purpose in this world to tell your story and help others. But right now you're disrupting my class. And I don't want to send you to detention or the principal's office because that ain't going to help you. That hasn't helped you yet. So let me offer you a different way. He gave me a notebook, gave me a challenge to write my story so I could later share it in the front of all the class. And that right there started a fire in my belly, fire in my heart to want to share my story, be a writer, be a storyteller, be a speaker. And I mean, that's the road I've been on ever since middle school, 7th grade. Mr. McGarry, shout out to Mr. McGarry.
All right. You mentioned that storytelling has the power to rewrite narratives filled with loss and trauma. How do you use your story to offer hope and healing to young people?
Oh my goodness. So you ever play those games, Connect the Dots?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it's a hamburger. Sometimes it's your favorite cartoon character. Sometimes it's something weird because you did it wrong, right? So that game of connect the dots, right? Every dot on that path has a purpose. And when you connect the dots to the right other dot, you see the full picture by the end. And I feel like my story, your story, everybody's story who's watching is a dot along that path, along that journey. And the more faithful we could be to telling our story, the more we'll see the bigger picture of who we are and who we're supposed to be. But it's only through being faithful to our story, telling all of it. The highs, the lows, the wins, and the losses. The W's and the L's, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah. That's a good question, thank you.
As a rapper and live speaker, how do you see the connection between hip-hop, culture, and conflict in shaping how we think and communicate?
Oh, my goodness. I think it's all of it. You know, when I think about hip-hop, which is the culture I grew up in, I was brought up in, it informed how I think, right? Because the rappers were preaching to me. Hip-hop informed the way that I dressed because it's what I saw all around me, what stores were available to me in my neighborhood, and what options were we choosing to dress ourselves in to be accepted in the culture of hip-hop, right? So baggy jeans, long tees. That's not the style today, but if I showed you a photo of what I looked like in middle school, y'all would laugh at me. My kids laugh at me for sure, because I was wearing long tees down to my knees. That was the thing. With a fitted hat to the back and Timbs, and my jeans would look like parachutes. It was ridiculous, but that was the culture. That's how we dressed. That's how we felt confident. That's how we felt accepted, was if you dress a certain way, and that came from hip hop, right? So right now, everybody in this room, we all want to be accepted. We want the people around us to look at us and say, you have value. I welcome you into my circle. You have value. I welcome you into my family. And even on a deeper sense, right? We want to be loved. You have value. I want to be in a dating relationship with you. You have value. I want to marry you. And then when we look to our parents, we want them to look at us and say, you have value. You're my child. You're my daughter. You're my son. I want to raise you and care for you, right? That need for love, that desire for acceptance, we all have it. And I think for me, hip hop, the culture I was brought up in, gave me the map, gave me the rules for how to be accepted. I knew how to be accepted. I'm gonna talk a certain way. I'm gonna dress a certain way. I'm gonna think a certain way about the world. unfortunately, sadly, until this day, I wonder how many of us in the room can relate to this. Hip hop also gave me some very whack lessons, taught me a lot of trash information. For example, how to view and treat women. I was raised by a single mom, y'all. The last thing I want to do is disrespect women, but my favorite rappers were teaching me how to disrespect women, right? I was raised by a single mom. The last thing I want to do is objectify women, but my favorite rappers were teaching me how to objectify women. So there were some really good lessons that made me feel accepted, made me feel welcome and loved and cared for. But then there were some very terrible lessons that till this day I've had to like dismantle and delete, select all, delete, you know what I'm saying? On some of the stuff hip hop taught me. But I think it's just that our culture teaches us not only how to be, but how to be accepted, how to be a part of the world around us. And that's what it was for me. Yeah, I could say more about the community I was raised in, the neighborhood, and how the violence outside my house and the violence in my living room also informed me, how fear became a part of my everyday thinking because of how afraid I felt to go outside or to be inside my house, right? So like, it all just raises me to think, believe, and act in certain ways that then when I become an adult, this is the crazy part, when I become an adult, what I learned in my teenage years, and this is something for y'all to think about, what I'm learning in my teenage years, what are my favorite rappers and singers teaching me? What are they wearing in the music videos that seems to get the opposite sex's attention? Or the attention that I desire from who I desire it. How are they getting it? Oh, they wear less. Oh, they speak this way. Oh, they think that way. I'm gonna adopt that. I'm gonna take on that. But what happens is when we live in these patterns, when we adopt this way of thinking as a teenager, from our favorite rappers, from our whoever the voices of influence are in our culture, we turn into adults and those patterns grow up with us. So if I'm a teenager listening to my favorite rapper tell me how to look at women, how to see women and objectify them. 10 years later, 15 years later, that pattern of thinking in my mind is gonna grow up with me. And what starts now as just an idea, just a simple thought, is gonna turn into me acting on it. And I turn into a dude who disrespects women so regularly and naturally that I don't even know how to respect women anymore, right? So I think that's a really good question. I think the culture we're brought up in informs us, but also misinforms us. And it's up to us to navigate through the information we're receiving from our culture and our upbringing and decide, what kind of man do I want to be? What kind of woman do I want to be? Do I want to become that, or do I want to do something different? And so then it's up to you to rewrite the narrative, rewrite the rules, rewrite your mindset. Thank you for that. That's good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you worked in education and detention centers for over 15 years. How has this work influenced your views on the power of stories and transforming lives?
Oh my goodness, so many, right? In 15 years, I've interacted with so many young people who have a full story. And my job in education has always been to be a provider of restorative justice. So you misbehave in a classroom, you're coming to see Mr. Geo, right? But my mission has never been to make that a scary thing. My mission has always been to make that a healing thing. You're gonna come see Mr. Geo because you acting up in class. Well, guess what? I'm gonna get your mind right. We're gonna talk about this so that this doesn't continue to be a pattern in your life, right? But what I will say, you said specifically, how has connecting to other people's stories, working in detention centers and education. Working in detention centers is a unique perspective on understanding what people have gone through rather than what's wrong with people. Anybody ever ask you the question, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Maybe not, hopefully never, right? But maybe some of us have experienced that question. What's wrong with you? Especially after you've made a mistake or you're trying your best and you fail and then someone meets you with, what's wrong with you, right? That's a hurtful question, right? What I've learned in all these years working in detention centers has been when I sit with the people who got caught and get sentenced to serve time in a detention center, teenagers, usually at the core of their behavior, of their crime, of their wrongdoing, is them trying to meet a need. They need something, and they're not getting it. And so they got to do whatever it takes to get it, right? And so once again, here goes this beautiful dot of a story. When we get to hear the story of the person serving time in a detention center, when we get to hear the story of the student getting sent to the principal's office, we have a better understanding of why they decided to act that way in my class, why they decided to act this way in our community. And now, even though they get to sit or they have to sit in this cell, serve their time, it's not teaching them much. But when we can connect with their story, we can understand them a whole lot better. And maybe on the other side, we can offer them something that will help them make better choices based on what we understand about their story. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
When you understand someone's story, you can help them, you give them better advice.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just something I'm realizing. When you have a best friend who is in a relationship that's toxic, because you have that best friend, you know how to give them advice because you know their story. But if just some random comes up to you and tells you they're in a toxic relationship, you're going to be like, okay, why are you telling me? I don't even know you. You don't know what advice to give them because you don't know their story. So I really do believe that the power of the story makes us even better friends to each other.
Can I add to that? Like, also, like, if you've been through what she's going through, like, if you've already been through it, you can give her, like, better advice.
Let's go, right? Because you shared your story with your friend. Now they're sharing their story with you.
Yeah.
And what are you doing? You're connecting the dots, right?
Yeah.
Listen, all right, we could talk about this all day, but I know you got other questions, so go ahead. What else you got for me?
All right. You traveled the country and even performed in places like Haiti and Dominican Republic. How have these experiences shaped your perspective on culture and community?
Very simple. I have come to understand that the world is very big, and I am very small. My problems, my experiences, the things I've been through, even my dopest moments in life, even my hardest tragedies in life are all pretty small compared to the size of the planet that we live on. People are going through so many more things, so much bigger things than I've experienced. So it's actually helped to shape my perspective to do something called right sizing. Right? You ever heard people saying, like, you're making it a bigger problem than it is, right? You're maximizing it. You're blowing it out of proportion, right? That's maximizing. Or you ever get met with, like, when someone is telling you something, but you don't respond the way they want you to respond, and they say you're minimizing it. You know what I mean? You're making it sound too small, like it's not important. You're minimizing it, right? Neither of those extremes are healthy. It's teaching me to right size. The more I travel, whether I'm in Cali, Maine, California to Washington to Michigan, wherever I go, and I'm interacting with students, I'm interacting with other adults, teachers, and educators, I'm realizing the world is big and I'm small. My story is a small part of the bigger one. That's a good one. Thank you for that.
Can you share more about your upcoming book, The Yellow Note? What inspired you to write it, and what message do you hope readers will take away?
What inspired me to write it was my personal story. When I was in elementary school, I would get handed this yellow note. This yellow note has lived with me most of my life. This yellow note has held me back. This yellow note has made me believe that I'm prone to fail, and it has made me feel very insecure and afraid to take risks. This yellow note was a very small card about the size of a photo, right? Like the size of a 3x5 or 4x6, 5x7 postcard with 4 words written on it: excellent, good, fair, and poor. One of those words would get circled to describe my whole school day. You're in school for a long time, ain't you? Like 6-7 hours? It's not enough to describe my whole day with one word: excellent, good, fair, or poor. But that's what I would get on this yellow note. And then 2 lines under it to describe my day to my mom from my teacher. 2 lines. Our day is made up of a lot of details, right? What happens in the morning might be different than what happens mid-morning, and it might be even worse than what happens in the afternoon. But this yellow note with 2 lines and 1 word circled is supposed to describe all of that: the highs and the lows, how I made good choices and bad choices. Well, when I would make some pretty bad choices, rather than being held accountable, I would bring home a yellow note with the word fair or poor circled, and I would get in trouble. I would bring that note home and get in trouble for it. So I got in trouble in school, then I get in trouble at home because that note was supposed to tell the whole story of my whole day. But really, all it told was the story of a moment of bad judgment and a bad choice. And so I lived day in and day out, some days taking home a good yellow note, but most days bringing home a poor or fair yellow note. And it would mess with my mind. And it created this fear in me to try to do good. I just decided at some point, what's it matter? Whether I do good or bad, if I make one mistake, if I make two mistakes, even though they're bad and I should have been held accountable, I'm going to get a fair or poor, so I might as well just do whatever I want. So it turned me into a version of myself that wasn't great. So I want to write about that. I want to write about that journey. I want to write about that fear to fail, right? Many of us, I wonder how many of us in this room are afraid to try anything because we're afraid we might fail. How many of us are afraid to volunteer to do a podcast because we're afraid we might stutter, or we are afraid that our voice is not loud enough? How many of us are afraid to sign up for that club after school, or audition for that, try out for a sport, or audition for a play because we know for a fact we're not good enough for it, right? How many of us are walking with that fear? Well, for me, my fear began at the yellow note. And there were other moments of fear before that, but I feel like the defining moment for me was receiving that yellow note day in and day out. And so I had to deconstruct that fear, deconstruct those rules of what the yellow note did to me. And I just want to write about it. I want to write about it. And some other things, some cool stories along the way, but that's the main point of the yellow note. Thanks for asking.
Okay. What role do you think restorative justice plays in healing communities? And how can students begin to explore its impact in their own lives?
Wow, what a good question. I don't think there are enough episodes available to us on any podcast streaming site to cover that question. But what I will simply say is this. Anytime we make a bad choice, anytime we harm somebody with our choices or our words, we should be held accountable. Accountable is not the same thing as punished. I don't think punishing people will help teach them how to be better. I think it might harm them back. It might get revenge, but it won't actually teach that part of you that is making the bad choices and causing harm. So that word restorative, right? Restorative, I think, is one of the most powerful things that we could identify how we respond with. If we respond in a restorative way. So right now, if you disrespect me, if you say something that's hurtful to me, I could disrespect you back. And guess what? We both walked away feeling disrespected, and no one walks away happy, right? But if I respond in a restorative way, not only am I going to repair the harm, fix the problem between us, which was the disrespect, but also I have the opportunity to help give you some insight as to why you felt the need to disrespect me. What is in your mind? What is in your heart? What do you believe about yourself and about me that gave you the idea to disrespect me? And now, not only did I heal our relationship and repair the harm between us, but hopefully I offer you a new tool to think about so that the next time you're tempted to disrespect, the next time you're met with that belief, maybe you do something different, right? So I really believe that restorative justice, when we respond to students, when we respond to harm in a way that restores, that is the only way that a response will actually heal the harm. Otherwise, throwing criminals in a 9x9 box is not going to help them become better versions of themselves, right? Throwing teenagers into a detention center is not going to help them become a better version of themselves. It's going to punish them. It's going to make someone else's life easier, but it's not going to help the individual who caused the harm to grow, mature, heal, and then become a person who contributes to community rather than steal from the community. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So anyway, like I said, there's not enough episodes in the world to cover that question, but that's the best I could do in a little bit of time. Thank you for that.
All right. For students considering careers in music education or restorative justice, what's the most important lesson you've learned that you want them to know?
If you're a whack rapper, don't start. I'm just kidding. No, as a rapper, so like for me, I didn't, being like when I was y'all age, I didn't foresee a semi-successful career in rap ever being a part of my life. But because my teacher, Mr. McGarry, empowered me to write my story and I discovered a love for writing, It's almost something that I did naturally to become a writer, tell stories, paint pictures with words. Me rapping, so can I get a little personal? Me rapping was a response. It wasn't even a desire to be rich, right? So if anybody's in here trying to become a rapper because you want to be rich, good luck. Most of your favorite rappers are on borrowed time and borrowed money. They ain't rich either. So like, it wasn't because I wanted to be rich, although I thought that would happen and it didn't. I walked into a church at the age of 12 or 13 years old and was met with a mentor, one of the youth leaders, took me under his wing, right? And while I had a very difficult time through my teenage years identifying as a good person, I made a lot of very whack life decisions in my teenage years. I was also faithfully attending this youth group where this youth leader, he also liked rap, but he liked something called gospel rap. He liked Christian rap. I didn't know that was possible to be a Christian and rap. Like, nah, those two worlds can't mix, right? So he would show me different CDs. Back in the day, we used to listen to music on these things called CDs. I don't know if y'all ever heard of them. But anyway, he would show me CDs and tapes. Tapes were also another way to listen to music back in the day. And he would take me to concerts. And some of them were really corny, some of them were whack, but then some of them were super impressive. So as I grew up in my teenage years, I was listening to the music he was giving me, which had a positive message, and the music that I was listening to that hip-hop offered me, which was teaching me how to objectify women and make money the wrong way, right? So I'm hearing two different perspectives through the same avenue, rap. Both are teaching me something. Both are forming how I think. Well, when I graduated high school, when I was like 18 years old or so, graduating, boom, I'm ready to face the world. I had this deep fire in my belly that I wanted to be a faithful Christian. I wanted to follow my faith. I wanted to follow the teachings that this man was teaching me. So I wanted others to come along on the journey. And so what did I do? I did what I knew to do best. I started writing. I started writing raps. I started writing songs in hopes to attract people to follow along on this newfound joy that I had for this life change that I was making. And so I became this, what's now known as a Christian rapper. Mm-hmm. I would rap a lot about my story and my faith in hopes that people would hear and become attracted to this lifestyle. And that, I think, you asked, what would I want people to take away from my decision to become a rapper at least? Be true to your passion. I was passionate about my story and getting people to come along for this new journey I was on. If that's what your purpose and passion are, do the thing that will fill that tank, whether it's rapping, whether it's carpentry, plumbing, you want to start a business, a food truck, you want to go be a motivational speaker, you want to be a teacher, a principal, as long as it's fueling that passion that you have burning inside, do it and don't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, what you spend the next, 60-ish years of your life doing is the legacy you're going to leave behind. I hope that my 6 studio albums that I've recorded are heard by millions of people after I die. And I hope that it impacts somebody to make a positive life change. So, yeah, thank you for asking. That's a good question.
You empathize that students' voices are powerful and needed. How can young people start using their voices to create change in their communities today?
Oh, my goodness. By listening. One of the best tools that I was given when I was learning how to be a speaker, learning how to do restorative justice, learning how to teach, speak, and empower was I will become a better speaker when I become a better listener. If I'm listening to the stories of other people, I will know better how to respond. It's the same thing with writing and reading. I will become a better writer when I become a better reader because I'm accepting ideas, internalizing them, and processing them. So I would say for young people, you want your voice to be heard, become better listeners. Listen to the stories of people around you. Listen to the adults in your life who are speaking life to you. Listen to your friends. Listen to your parents. What are they telling you? And why are they telling you? And connect the dots. And your voice will start to matter when you become a better listener to those around you. Because after all, you want to use your voice to speak to people around you, right? If the people around you don't feel heard, guess what? They're not going to want to hear what you have to say then. So become a better listener.
Okay, last question. You're a storyteller and coffee nerd. How does that love for coffee fit into your creative process? Do you have a favorite blend or place to write?
Hey, good question. Oh, snap. So, yeah, I am kind of a coffee nerd. My friend, I used to drink trash coffee all my life. And I thought coffee just had one flavor. Yep, just like that. I used to think coffee just had one flavor. So when somebody would say, yeah, I like coffee, or no, I don't like coffee, in my mind, I would think, oh, you're thinking about just the burnt taste of smoky water. Right? So like I just had this idea of what coffee was. My friend made me a cup of coffee one day. This was about 10 years ago in what's called a French press. It's a way to like actually make the coffee. And I tasted it, and he gave it to me without cream or sugar. Now, I'm Puerto Riqueño. You drink café con leche with every breakfast, every morning. Café con leche con mucha azúcar, real sweet.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like a little more sugar than coffee, to be honest. So that's how I grew up, too, drinking that type of coffee. So if it wasn't super sweet with café, with azúcar, con crema, like, I just couldn't drink it, right? So he gave it to me black with no cream, no sugar. Yeah, my grandparents would be flipping in their grave like, what? With no crema and no azúcar? What kind of coffee is this, right? But he'd tell me, listen, taste it. It's full of more flavor this way. I was like, no. So I tasted it. And don't you know, it blew my mind how much flavor I could taste in a cup of coffee that, one, the beans, the coffee beans, were roasted the right way. Two, the coffee grind, so it was chopped up into little bitty pieces, like it was ground the right way. And it was served at the right temperature. All those things, right? It opened my mind to wanting to learn how to make a good cup of coffee like this for myself. So I went home, bought a French press, and starting that day, I started making coffee in a French press, which turned into, okay, how else can I make good coffee that I don't have to drown in crema and azúcar? And it just became, it turned me into a nerd. How that informs my creative process? Well, it taught me that there are details that matter to making a good cup of coffee. If the coffee beans were trash from a trash farm, but the grind and the French press was right, it wouldn't matter because the coffee beans were trash, right? If my French press if I don't have the right temperature water, I could have great coffee beans and a perfect grind, but I'll ruin it with not the right temperature water. So details matter. It matters to our story. It matters to who we are. The details of why you believe what you believe, why you share your story and why don't you share your story, all the little details, they matter. And that has helped me to become more effective in my storytelling.
Okay, lastly, do you want to share any social media accounts with
My
us?
social media, I want everybody listening to go follow me. I'm trying to get my numbers up. So my social media handle, I'm on Instagram, I'm on IG, at Ramos Restored, or at Ramos Restored, if you're Latino like me and you are passionate about rolling your R's and saying your Ramos correctly. At Ramos Restored. Honestly, I have a Facebook, but that's for old people, right? Y'all ain't on Facebook. But you can follow me on IG, at Ramos Restored. That'd be awesome.
Thank you. We're glad to have you here.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you for inviting me. This is like such an honor. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for watching another episode of the Dope Student Podcast. Bye.
Bye.
That was so...